Right. Have a sebetseng guys. Ke accounting. I started at 5:09. Right. Jwale, re tlosa the theory part. Yeah, accounting. Unfortunately, we are not going to deal with body accounting equation because we have already dealt with that. Diteng ka tutorialeng ke responsibility ya motho fela hore a lo dula fatshe a shebane le ntho tseo. Jwale ke tlo revise fela ke dipotso tsa hosane tse, and o ka etsahala hore hosane dipotso tse di hlaye as fill in the missing words. Ka etsahala hore dipotso tse di hlaye e le bo table, and then when now you have some code, and then when you have to complete the table. Nka ya table ya cash receipt le ya cash payment journal ka re wena o fane ka di differences kapa di similarities tsa those ways, two different ways of posting to those two different journals. Nka ya ntho tshwana le nka o fa the accounting cycle ka re wena o complete yona from diagram 1 until the last diagram. Ke dintho tse teng ka mono ka YouTube channeleng ya rona. Ka mantswe a mang, ha o kena ka YouTube channeleng, you will require the entire tutorial to go and sit down and prepare for the test ya hosane, because the test ya hosane e kentse accounting equation, e kentse cash receipt, e kentse cash payment, e kentse di one word item, e kentse di crossword hore bua rena definition ena ya column A e matcha which descriptive word e ka column B. So o ka etsa la mehlolo, accounting cycle e tlo hlahanda. In fact, today we will wrap up everything so that you know exactly what needs to be prepared for test ya hosane. Right, ha ke tsebela ba ntse le practice. Now, ha re tla qale ka the accounting cycle. Accounting cycle grade 8. Ha re tla qale hona mo. Ra re ntwa pele o accounting cycle, there's a transaction that takes place. Get to a pele. So reka draw in terms of diagrams. Rare number 1 renali transaction that takes place, and then from the transaction, this transaction it is then recorded. It recorded as evidence ya gona le transaction on a source document. Step submit. Renale, the information is recorded on a source document. And then once that information is recorded on a source document, renka that information recorded on a subsidiary journal. Renka that information, and then the information is recorded on a subsidiary journal. And then once that information is recorded on a subsidiary journal, it goes up from that subsidiary journal, recorded in a general ledger. Number 4, the information is recorded on general ledger. Okay? And we are saying we are posting on that general ledger. And then once the information is on a general ledger, now we must take that information and then we show the balances, the totals of what we get from a general ledger, and then we record that on a trial balance. So the balances, are taken. They are taken to a trial balance. Right. And then we are using a trial balance to create an income and a balance sheet. Then lastly, we are taking that information,
income,
and then we are using the trial balance to create an income statement. So Mona, we create income statement and a balance sheet. This is the accounting psyche, and it is of utmost importance that we understand and familiarize ourselves with that. Highly and highly important that we understand the cycle of how money is recorded. And then we spoke of many and many examples of how these transactions takes place. Reza the example of Shoprite till sleepy this and this and this, and the total amount of money, using that as a what? As a source document. And then once that transaction is recorded on a source document, we are therefore taking, the accountants will take that information on a source document, and then that information will be recorded on a subsidiary journal. And then once if it an accountant the business, because we understand that there has to be a cycle from which the transaction revolved around. And then once that information is taken from that subsidiary journal, it is then recorded or it is posted on a general ledger. And then from the general ledger, the balances, the totals of whatever that we get from the general ledger, those balances are taken to a trial balance. And then we are using a trial balance to create an income and income statement and a balance sheet. Kameledi balance accounting equation. Whatever that you got from the left must be equals to the sum of the two that you get on the right in terms of cash receipt journal. We dealt with all the calculations and what revolves around that. And then I explained thoroughly what happens in this. Right. And then from there, I think it will be important that we try to explain what this accounting cycle is. Now, the accounting cycle, indicates the route. It is just an indication. It indicates the route that the business. It indicates the route that the business transaction follows. Okay? From the moment that transaction takes place, from the moment the transaction takes place, to when all the transactions are recorded, to show the financial position of the business, to show the financial position of the business. Ya re bolella hore whether business ya hola kapa whether business e eme kapa whether business ya putla. That's exactly what the accounting cycle is all about. The accounting cycle, it indicates the route, meaning a path kapa a way that the business transaction follows. These are the steps that a business transaction will follow. So that re kgone ho trace hore na itse ha o rekwa dithibeke le lebese and everything ho tsule eng for stock ho etsaetseng balance sheet re nkile bokana ga tshela petrol ga etsa eng. That entire information, it's a transaction because it involves the exchange of what? Of money. So it shows the route that the business transaction follows. From when? From the moment the transaction takes place. From the moment that's a transaction. To when all the transactions are recorded, everything, spendile bokae for motlakase, re spendile bokae for eng. The recordings of the day have to be recorded to show what? The financial position of the business. Re kgone ho bona hore at the end of the month, if that's how we progress our calculations, or whether we calculate the totals tsa rona month end kapa on a weekly basis and so on. Re kgone ho bona eng? The financial position of the business. So sentse you ruta lo e ho lo sa no se ka tlo jua ke basadi ba o je basadi ba o qeta o le busy mona o mathaka ka tšhelete sa tsebele mo ya. There has to be a what? There has to be a cycle from which your money has to move. I ba tšhelete how unfortunately ko matha basadi, unfortunately that transaction ha e khutli. Because I tswile like everyone is so come on to mang because basadi bana ba ntse ba nka tšhelete ne ha e kene business e etsang ya putlaka ba bangata ntate ba juwe ka ntle ka mona wa ba tseba le wena o ntse o lo ntate wa mane ka nnete bomme ba le ba mtsuta jwale ra o ruta le wena mo ra o ruta hore ntate o tlameile o be motho a tsebang a focusitseng business. Ho thweng business does not include pleasure. Business and pleasure, they don't mix. That is why Camilla how le motho ntate o hlaphoetswe ka kelellong o nyalo o be le lelapa o be le mosadi a le mong o tseba hore o etsa dintho tsa business le yena. This is very important. Camilla go le buteng ntho tsena ntate bo grade 18 o tseba hore tšhelete ha ba pole ka tšhelete ntate ha ba pole ka tšhelete because tšhelete e kgona ho hodisa kapa tšhelete ntate ha o sa e sebedise hantle ya o dia. And wa tseba le wena ga sena tšhelete ana motho o batlang batho ka ofela ba batla motho ana le tšhelete and a so ga hantle ba batla wena batho ba batla tšhelete o nang le yona. So these are fundamental things. Hey monna hona ntwe sa itlising ha ona le tšhelete ayo ke efeng ntwe etse ntwe sa itlising hona jole monna e ke menta o le mona ntate a he mona ntate a kenye bodi eng mona lapeng o tlo bone le batho bona ba sa motšhakeleng ba tlo kena ha ne go tlo checka go wa phela na a sa tlo checka ni satane ya motho a tlo checka lo tšha jole a ke atla ka tseno ha ke atla ka tseno jole re tabeng eno ya hore this is an accounting cycle and like jaga ke batlo bua maka this accounting cycle, it's very, very important. That is why the business is a maburu. That is why the business is a English maho. Most to that all. It's because they master and understand the strategy of managing a business. Babona ba mataka di mpantate ba ja fa pina ne come do say what baby I can say ke wana fela lo TikTok ba ja fa tseno ba bona ha una business tsa bona tse yema hani yo nte bona hona jolo esikomo o tsalang ka yona because itse ha o tloa maburu bana ba ka odimo di tshwaba ke batho ba batho go to be honest ntse tse di batla go street bona o tsala bona di mine tse kotsweng because of a lack of financial strategy accounting cycle ye ba ije tšhelete ntate ba ije ba iqeta di kwalo di mine ntate di kwetswe e ya mona boitumelo no o lo sheba ke di shopo tse ka etse kwetsweng tse di kwalo ka mono ka complexing ka mo. Because of this, they do not have a strategic way, because motho a motsho o batla o ja a bethe banana at the same time. Ntate o no kgona. Ha o no kgona ho betha banana ha o tshwane le o kena ka hara Louis kapa o kena ka hara yona yani ke build it o reka motšhini o tlo generatela tšhelete ha e tshwane. Tšhelete ntate ha e ya ngwananeng ha e kgutli yele ile ntate ile ha e kgutli. Mare business wa tseba hore ha o kadima tšhelete ya business o lo reka motšhini o itseng, motšhini ona o tlo thusa business o re etseng e hole ene e tlo menahanya tšhelete yane e ileng ke business eo. No tsa business ntate le banana o le shano bana bona ntho tse turang ntate bo estro what tse ba ke di tsebele kana bo Savana ya tura ntate ke 30 rand 30 something Savana ha re sa bua ka bo dimoyete tsena tsa bona ba ba ja bona bo JC what ha ke ditse ha ke di mente ntho tseno di aba bila ke di batla jwale ntate di a tura ntho tseno. Jwale le wena sentse re rutela lo sana hore le ha o ka ba wa fumana girlfriend is now financial strategy abatlang mo kenye bo speeds ntate every time wena ke speeds le spare asa nahana hore tšhelete eno ya tswa ina ha ikene wa mosi no mona bona na mabaka o thowetse. Jwale next science madi he matona tlamele re le rutentse re le advice at the same time. Right, so this is the accounting side here. Now let us try to look at the first step, the step of transaction. Or na ke eng this transaction. Right, ke eng transaction. Transaction takes place every time money exchanges hands between the business and another party. So ke eng transaction, an exchange of money. Okay? Right. A transaction takes place every time money exchanges hands between the business and another party. And right, ke nna ona ke a tlo. Ya money Boitumelo complex. Ke lo reka mafura. Especially 3 liter ya mafura. Ke 100 rand. Shop ga iti mane 3 liter ya mafura.
Ana ke tseba ba di 2 liter tse 3
ka
150.
Kae?
Box.
Di 2 liter tse 3 ka 150. Wa you ntate. Ke special. Ke special ntate. Money you save man. Ke nna ona ke a tloga ke a mo you save. Kilo exchange tšhelete for mafura. Ke into it's a transaction between the business eling Shoprite kapa Boxer le nna the person I am mo le ka tšhelete. That's a transaction. Ha o ntsha tšhelete ka pokothong o e fa ngwanana mane wena o bitswa mahlisa or what. Ke transaction into it.
Yes,
that's a transaction. Jwale o tlo kgona go etsa transaction ya ngwanana wa strateng ka mona o batlele o fa mme ka tlung o tlo kgona e ntse etswa again. So we ha re go be stingy, but be careful ka tšhelete, because once we lose e fela re tlo see re tsamaye re bua ka wena mane re bona o tswa na mathaka mona mathaka a re yena a ka re rekella le matlo a rona le dijeresi le di. So the more you grow, and in China color at an early age, but Mama China ba the accounting cycle at a very early age. Bana ba le ba calculate the computer. Tsa modimo ka fa matla, modimo a fa matla later. Ba tla le ruta ntwe. O calculate ntwena le we qala fatshe le we programmer le we network. Ba nna ona ntwe excited. Ba nna ke le reinforce ke ntwe thata. Ke qaka ke qale fatshe. Go ruta programmer ntwena hard drive ke eng, RAM ke eng, processor e lighter jwang, o installer jwang tato di operating system wirelessly ka sticky ka disk. Banna go go be le practical e ga go postile video man YouTube ha le bona ba bona go ntate le babi ntate le kotsi ke ntse tswa ke bona ba ma Chinese le ditsebe ntho tsena ntate o tsebe o ngola code
Kolo tse dingwe se di etswa ke bana.
di-app tsena tse le bapalang ka tsona tsena ntate ka Play Store di ngolwa ke bana wena o tlolela futa university man ka ditedu khona o ntse o bolellwa ka Android le teng ba o bolella basic e senang le mabaka e senang le mabaka basic ya teng ha ina le mabaka o go botse gona go tswa mono ga tsebe a go bolelle ntho tse ha ina mabaka ntate ha ina mabaka ga pasa ka YouTube a hona le student le sa passing ka YouTube ke sa phela o maths o physics o software engineering o Python o Visual Studio Code C++ ntate ga pasa ka YouTube le di professor di re referela YouTube ka mantswe a mang ha o hloka le logo ya university mo o ka iketsetsa ntho eno hae. There are many self-taught geniuses ba ngolang di-app tsa dibanka tse serious ba ithutileng dintho tsena YouTube hae. Motho a senang le certificate sena sa matric nga go ngola app ntate ya Capitec e mo hirile ntate o gola tšhelete ka
So le video YouTube ba tlo di etsa.
ke bua ntho eno ntate. And many geniuses know but what's on about Elon Musk by encourage until ba bolella go degree ya ha ntate kapa college certificate and then ha hloka it's very unnecessary. It's very unnecessary ntate. Because o khona ema one le motho je at on university I enter math differential calculus ntate applied mathematics CUT man ntate wena o yetse online mo we master a good afumana go le reinforce o tshepo lebe ntwe thata afumana go ba na 3 years ne ke spending man ne ke be ke spending mo YouTube but hey ke system ya rona ke ga o snap pampiri ana motla hi wateng a very stupid system. Right, so we are saying that a transaction is an exchange of money because at the end of the day, many teachers they know nothing. Go to be honest, the very honest truth. Go simple hona jwale ha gone le go manager attention ya bana ka classeng ya mohlola simple fela go manager attention ya ngwana
ga ba lokisa le diphoso sekolong ma mistress ha ona diphoso go ntse
ntate motho ka le classeng a sa prepare next go tla bona ga kgathalla
e ka go rutwe ke go
matha e bana nthono ha e ka lona le rona ha ne re kena dikolo re ne re e bona go re ntate there are many of them. How do you put how come? How was it possible? Teacher maths, physics, chemistry, teacher, chemist. Explain and that's a transaction. We are saying that a transaction takes place every time money exchanges hands between the business and another party. This is a record of every income and expense action. It is a record of every income and expense. Now, how do you set up a record? Come on, on a transaction, a record income. Le expense chelete etswa mona ke batla highlight ke re females ibane ke re be careful females, be careful of females. I'm very sorry to say that. Be careful of females and their pretty faces and their curvy and everything. Be careful because if a transaction is a record of every income and expense, you must be careful now we spend a guy that income. Lona le kamele le ithute diphoso tsa rona. Hore a time a serious o la ka paisa. o kgole utlwa mama bua le wena ga time o la ka paisa una ja tšhelete le bomme mona seterateng. You must learn from that. Gore ha ke tlo hata mane ke bone go time la ka hata mona a etsa phoso. Ke batla nna time ho sane ha mpona a bone ke be someone a proud ka ena gore ngwana ka ha etsa diphoso tse ke di entseng ha o tluwa tšheleteng le basadi. Ke ntse tla mona ngale bolelle tsona tsena ba file
Letsa diphoso mara.
di very important taba tse.
Tšhelete bohlokwa ke yone e phedisang.
Ntate mpolelle hona jwale ha re sena tšhelete ya go reka mollo mona na re ka laita na ra record. That's my question. O tlo tla jwang classeng o hlapile o nkga monate o sena tšhelete bane sepa ke tšhelete gore o hlape ka mlo spende in income e kae income eno o batlang o spenda because I gore o hlokomele lelapa o tlamehile o be le income e kenang so that o kgone o e spenda lelapeng.
Ba bang ba ropa motlakase.
Motlakase ona re tlo dula re o ropa sheng. Bona ba ka ya mo ba ratang motlakase a ba o reke le bona self
Ba o ropa.
a ba o reke ba o ga tseba batho ba Eskom ba o ropa. We know
Ha ma bo bona ba iropela hore.
go study le motlakase le bona ga o tseba ntate. There are many ways fela ke encourage because I'm not showing the way of doing that. Ko betsa ntate o thole ho re tu o ntse go ha o ropei ko betsa gut ko ntse go ke le rimvoso ke lepe ke ntwe thata ha o no nketsa nix ntate ke le galla ntate ke le jela mo ga maphofu jalo ona he re tlo ropa as long as ba ntse ba re pamisetsa di-taxi tse tsa bona le mesebetsi le siyo re na le mangolo ga hlame re tlo ropa go right ha ona taba ha ona taba fela ha ke re tsa mo ropa ke bua ka nna because now I have all the skills and I know all the safety precautionary measures that one must understand in order to get to that level. Ntate ke levo ntate mpa fela le santse ntwe thata ntate ke le reinforce. Right, jwale re tlo jwalo re we record every income and every expense. A kere bana beso. Right, ha ona taba he. Right, we are saying that this is a record of every income and expense action that takes place within the business. As a bookkeeper, you need to record every transaction from a source document. So a bookkeeper record every transaction from a source document. Right, and then we know that transactions are done, they can be done on a daily basis depending on the business house size ya teng e kae kapa re ka etsa those businesses maybe once in a week, once in 2 weeks, once in a month, and so on. It depends ho ya ka the size of the business. So it is very, very important that we understand that. Highly and highly important. So that's a transaction. And then the source documents that are being used. The following source documents are used. Go around this. Write for me the different source documents that are being used for transactions. So re for cash receipts.
Okay, receipt. Copy of receipt.
And then re for cash payment. Okay? Right.
Copy of receipt.
Right. For cash receipts,
Copy of receipt.
copy of receipts. re sebedisa leng hape
Copy invoice.
cash register roll.
Payment. Oh,
Ross.
what are we saying?
Cash register roll,
Roll.
and then re sebedisa copies of cash invoices.
Invoices. Oh, we get
Ya
it.
ke a e tseba. O tla ntse.
When I get it. Naked that.
And then re sebedisa le deposit slip.
I'll see. Go on. I can.
So ka mantswe a mang ke for eng? For cash receipts. Ha o patala ka eng? Ka cash, again for cash receipts. These are the source documents. Re na le copies of receipts, cash register roll, copies of cash invoices, le deposit slip. Okay? And then on the other side, re na le original. If kamana re sebedisa di copy, kamana re sebedisa original. If kamana re sebedisa cash register roll, kamana re sebedisa cash or till slip. If kamane re sebedisa copies of cash invoices, kamana re sebedisa original cash invoice.
Original cash invoice. Deposit that.
And then if kamana re sebedisa deposit slip, kamana re sebedisa check and check counterfoil. Cash and cash counterfoil, okay? So ke eng ntwe? Ke the source documents. And it is very, very important that we understand that. It is highly and highly important that we try and understand that. Highly and highly important. Right. Ke kopa o tswella pele. Kopa o tswella pele, so that we continue in this. O tswella pele. Kopa o tswella pele. Right. What else are we saying? We know that we are taking the begins first worth. We said that source document
Contaminated.
they are updated on a daily basis. Alright? And then but who? And then we know that these source documents they will record a transaction. We know that a transaction takes place, and then this transaction is recorded on a source document. And then from a source document, we are taking that information and we are recording that information on a subsidiary journal. Alright. Once the informations are recorded on subsidiary journals, there are two types. We are therefore saying in a savers business, two types of cash transactions takes place on a continuous basis. So we are saying two types of cash transaction takes place on a continuous basis. Okay, let's that. MB. Right, there are cash receipt and cash payment. So these are the two types of cash transactions. So the two types of cash transactions in cash receipt and cash payment. Kai, basis, continuous basis. Right. So the two types of cash transactions that takes place again, cash receipt and cash payment. This is why two types of subsidiary journals are used to summarize the transactions. So that is the reason why we are saying that this is why two types of subsidiary journal are used to summarize transactions. All right, and then come on, in a service business, say any savers. In a service business, two types of cash transactions takes place on a continuous basis. That is why renally a cash receipt and a cash payment journal. And this is why those two types of subsidiary journals are used to summarize the transaction. So come on, Toma, cash receipt, le cash payment, it is subsidiary journal. Two types of subsidiary journals, cash receipt and cash payment. Why? Because in a service business, there are two types of transactions. Cash receipt, transaction iya cash. Cash payment, transaction iya opatala cash. Okay? So we receive the cash and then repartite cash. Right. So come on, because there are two types of cash transactions. This is why there are two types of subsidiary journal. So will be some cash receipt and cash payment. And then we can differentiate between the two. We can look at cash receipt journal and we can also look at cash payment journal. The CRJ records all the cash receipts transactions of the business. So CRJ records all the cash receipts, transactions of the business. Okay, and then secondly, what are the receipts? The receipts are all the money received by the business and deposited into a business bank account. So the receipts are all money received. They are all the money received by the business and it is deposited into a business bank account. Alright, cash receipt journal and then a cash payment journal. The CPJ records all the cash payment transactions of the business. Repartete ing kapa re rekile ing because ke payment. Right, CPJ records all the cash payments. It records all the cash payments. All the cash payments transaction of the business. Okay. And then in payments refer to all the checks drawn against the current bank account. Payments. The payments refer to all the checks drawn against all the cash drawn against the current business bank account. Again? Right. Hey, yeah.
Question paper ne re ngotse ya EMS ka fika. Ya metse.
Hey. Diteng ho nna mane. Ka mantswe a mang on Sunday tla be ke release
Sunday.
ha le qeta ngola tla be ke tshwaya ntho tseno be sentse ke poster le tsane kaofela tse teng ke di tshwaile ke di beile
EMS tona.
le tsa EMS tla be ke poster ntho ngwe le nngwe ya lona ntho ngwe le nngwe ya lona. Jwale theory ya lona ha ya fella mo, theory ya lona e ngata because re buile ka bo di general ledger, ra bua ka the debit side, the credit side. When the other one increases with a plus, the other one decreases with a minus and all that. But this is just a brief summary of
I bontsha teme. Kone bontsha.
Cash receipt general cash payment general
banna di tlo hlaya ha ke batlo bua le shana because tse ding tse tlo hlaya ke tsena mona. We said that the journals serve a dual purpose. It is used to summarize the similar transactions. That is the responsibility of journals. To decrease the number of transactions recorded in the general ledger, only the totals are posted. We know that. And journals are updated on a daily or on a weekly basis, depending on the number of transactions. That is very true. Banna ha hona ntho tsa tlo hlaya. Le the double entry principle to hlaya. Ha hona ntho sa tlo hlaya banna. Tlamehile o tsebe CPJ table le CRJ table ka hloho. Tlamehile o tsebe ntho tse. Tlamehile o tsebe le hore the name of the subsidiary journal is le entering cash transactions in the CRJ. O tsebe a ke re di buile ntho tse bo source document, bo date, bo amount, it was issued to who for what reason. Tlamehile ntho tse no di tsebe tsebe. Bo rena capital record ka kae. Tlamehile o tsebe o balance the CRJ re yentse le wena ntwe. Tlamehile o tsebe le accounting concepts. O mmame tlamehile o tsebe bo the sole trader, the sole proprietary. A sole trader is a form of a business where only one person owns the business and usually runs it too. Fumana hore re starta business e hantle re le bararo because of greediness le boloi. Se re qetella business e qhalakane, o so rana business ya hao o le iwane o iketsa ntho e nngwe le nngwe. You are a sole trader or a sole proprietor, a sole proprietor. Right, there are two types of businesses. Umamele, rena le a savers business, iling ena entse re bua ka yona mo. Savers business where you offer services like bo hairdressing, di manole wa mane le mitama akuta mo Alex. In exchange for payment, the money u luksa hloho wena o etsang wa patala. Okay? So that type of a business is a savers business. We also have a trading business where you sell goods like a supermarket. So come on, ShopRite is your supermarket. Come on, it is a trading business. Yep. And then also the difference between debit and credit. Every transaction a business does will have a debit and a credit. You debit one side, you credit one side. Ratseba credit ki plus chelete enters the business. Debit ki minus chelete ya tswa. Ki the double entry principle. Akiko bua tse ngata ba go fe. Tse ngata ke di buile di tutorial. Ha le tseba ntho tseno, o tseba bo capital ke. Capital is the money you need to start up a business. You can get capital in the following ways: a loan from the bank, kapa money invested by family and friends. Ba bangata ba lehlohonolo ba siela bo di 5 million, 7 million, ne le principal antate ne le sole. Kila bona ira motho ira ntate ira ile banana anwe majwala bo di botolo tsa bo di 11.7. Aki di tsebe le nna ke utlwa di bolelwa. Ba rekise bo ntwa ba tswa di a tsube bo cat, motho a tsube cat, ho tuna le bo cat le bo razor kapa o yin. Ba ba tsube le letswai, motho a qetella sa tsuba le matswai. Tjhelete e fedile. Yeah. Haona taba. And then o tsebe hore any profit the business makes are recorded to the owner's equity. And any losses are being deducted. If the owner decides to draw money for his or her own personal use, these drawings are also deducted from the value of the owner's equity. Wakati loso sina nix. Rekisele ntato ya mikuku ngwana ba ipei. Ulaiteka kerese ntato ulaiteka ka prime.
Ana ko mo ndwe le ntato yo.
Mayu. We rekise mention ntato wa tswari ntato wabo worth 4 point something meter. O rekise ntato ya mikuku ngwa. Unwe score. Score ka pa tukiphuza manja sa ubo. Unwe montetseni ntato. Unwe mono. Jwale ha una taba he. This is just a brief summary. Without involving calculations, we have dealt with calculations, and the videos are there on YouTube to enlighten you about all that. Jale tsa mo dula fatshe, tsa mo practice ke molojwa, jolo ka metla le ka matjhatsi.